Yes, ma'am.
So are you all willing to go on the record and say to Americans sitting at home that you're 1,000% confident the U.S. is ready for any kind of Russian response that may come from us hand delivering these jets? What do you think might happen, and do you think we are prepared for that, wherever that might be?
Go ahead.
Every military action involves a risk. There's no free choices here. But James Langford is absolutely right. This is a free country who depended on us, gave up their nuclear weapons because we said we'd be there with you, and we have an obligation to stand with them now. There's risk, no question about it. I don't think the Russians want to see these MiGs because they know they'd be harmful to their effort. That's the reason they're making such noise about this.
I would go back to the Budapest Agreement of 1994 as well. We made an agreement, a written promise to the Ukrainian people, as did Russia, that we would defend them if they gave up their nuclear arsenal. They did that. We need to do absolutely everything we can to make sure that they are defending their sovereign land. And in just the half hour that we have been up here, we have lost more Ukrainians. I guarantee that. And we're not talking about their soldiers. We're talking about innocent women and children, babies, innocent men that are on the street because they don't have the capability to defend themselves as they choose to defend themselves, because we are not living up to the agreement that we signed in 1994. So if Russia would decide to come after the United States, that trips Article 5. And that means that all of NATO would be involved in pushing back against Russia. And I guarantee you, Russia does not want that. Oh, yes. Yes, ma'am.
The other reason that the Pentagon gave for rejecting the request is that the Ukrainians aren't using the funds that they have. They're flying very few sorties. I mean, can any of you who have been briefed speak to that situation? Will they actually use?
So Zelensky doesn't know. We know better than he does.
Yeah, see, that was the point of the call this last weekend. And when we asked the president to name the priorities for Ukraine, one was to embargo oil, to cut off that funding stream to Russia. The second was fighter jets. They need that air cover. If we're not willing to provide that no-fly zone for them, give them the means capable to defend their own airspace. And that's exactly what we should be doing. But I would also argue, too, that we have sent how many thousands of troops to Europe, to our NATO allies. We don't necessarily need them right now, do we? But they are there just in case.
Can I comment on that? Go ahead.
Yes.
No, I mean, just to talk about this specific question, the best information we have, and it may not be entirely accurate, but is that they had about 37 MiG-29s when this started. So we don't know how many they have now because some have been shot down. And this notion that they're not flying all of them at once, of course they're not. I mean, you would want to conserve some in reserve if you didn't know what was going to happen. But if you knew you had another 29 MiGs coming in to back you up, you'd be much more likely to fly a few more sorties. That's what I'm hearing from military experts, and it makes sense to me.
Absolutely.
If this was a problem, why was it okay for Poland to give them the jets? These guys are spouting garbage, and you beat us up all the time. We probably deserve it half the time. You've got to go after this. Just look at what they're saying. They don't need more jets because they're not using the ones they've got. If we send them more jets, they may actually be more effective. This makes zero sense. And on March the 6th, 4 days ago, we green-lighted a transfer of MiGs by Poland to the Ukrainian Air Force. Nobody suggested then they don't need them, right? Now, all of a sudden, if we do what we were allowing Poland to do with our fingerprints on it, we're creating World War III. This makes zero sense, and I want to tell the American people, to your question, what if he gets away with this? What if Putin's able to go in and destroy the Ukraine, a democracy, and gets away with it, and we don't do all we can to help the Ukrainians. I'm not asking for a no-fly zone yet. I'm not asking to send ground troops. But the other side of the story is true, too. If he gets away with this, do you think he'll stop? Do you think this is all he wants? Roger made a good point yesterday. Hitler said, give me the Sudetenland, I'll stop. Well, he was lying. Putin's saying, I'm not going to stop. So to the American people, you figured this out better than the administration has. If you look at polling, the American people want to stop Putin now in the Ukraine, and they want to help the Ukrainians as much as they can.
You know, I want to put another point on the exclamation, though, and that is this. Back to what the leader said at the beginning and what I'm trying to emphasize. If we'd have done more to preempt this, like more javelins, more stingers, more sanctions prior to the invasion, perhaps they wouldn't have had. Well, now we don't know for sure, but there were a lot of us saying, let's do preemptive things rather than wait for the invasion. So we're going to wait around a couple more days to decide whether or not they're using MiGs enough for us to send them some more. No, let's deter him where at least where he is now, since it's too late to deter him where he was a couple weeks ago.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I just address?
We'll let Senator
I just
Clinton, and
want
then we're coming to you.
Again, just like the White House, the Pentagon's position is ridiculous. It contradicts itself. They're saying, on the one hand, Ukraine is not effectively using its current aircraft and it can't effectively use this aircraft. So the gains would be very small. But on the other hand, Vladimir Putin is going to view this as such an escalation that he might strike the United States or strike NATO. Both of those things can't be true. It can't be true that we know, and therefore Russia would know, that these airplanes are not going to add decisively to the battlefield situation. But on the other hand, Vladimir Putin would view that as necessary to strike the United States or NATO. The Pentagon is making a ridiculous assertion to justify the president's halting and hesitating half measures.
Yes, ma'am.
If the Biden administration doesn't provide these other steps, will there be further action under the pressing?
We will continue pressing, I can guarantee that. So we are working, of course, on the omnibus bill, and we hope to have a number of these measures in there, but the authority still lies with the President of the United States. But as has been pointed out by a number of my colleagues already, you only can't do it until you can. And we have seen that with this president time and time and time again, where he says we can't do this, we can't provide that, until the media and others provide pressure on him, and then he reverses course. So we are going to continue to put the pressure on this president to stand up, to abide by the agreement that was made in 1994, to abide by what they said that they could greenlight just a handful of days ago, and to allow the Ukrainians to defend themselves and their sovereign land. Every hour that goes by that we are not stepping up with our aid, whether it's lethal or otherwise, we have Ukrainians dying. And as I said, it's not just soldiers. They are innocent civilians that are in the path of this Russian monstrosity. And we need to provide everything we can to stop them. Yes, sir.
Earlier today, it was reported that Congressman Madison Cawthorn called Vladimir Zelensky a thug. He said the Ukrainian government is incredibly evil, incredibly corrupt, pushing woke ideologies, and he later said that the Ukrainian government is spreading misinformation about the war. While it may seem silly to ask you what a first-term congressman thinks, he's very popular with the base.
It really is silly to ask.
No,
Now,
so do you think that, given what he's saying, that Republican voters are not in the same place as you are on this issue?
No,
Well,
I can tell you what I think, because I spent time in Ukraine in 1989, while it was part of the former Soviet Union. And those that I visited with in Ukraine at that time, the first question, it was an agricultural exchange, and the first question that they asked of those of us from Iowa that were there on that collective farm, on that agricultural exchange, the first question they asked us was, what is it like to be an American? And what is it like to be free? They wanted to be free at that time. They were a fledgling democracy. You know, they became a free nation in 1991, and they have been fighting ever since. You know, if we think that any country is free of corruption, then we are kidding ourselves. But let me tell you what, the Ukrainians want to be free. They have been fighting for this for the past 30 years. And to just hand them over to an actual murderous thug named Vladimir Putin is the wrong thing to do. It is absolutely the wrong thing to do. So to my colleague in the House, I would push back and say, it's not Ukraine that is invading Russia. It is Russia invading Ukraine. And they are going to have, Russia, they are going to have a world of hurt on their hands. But we have to be able to provide them the means to do it.
So, Jones, that probably should have been the closing statement, but I can't resist it. The Republican base is with us on this. The vast majority of Democrats are with us on this. And my colleague and good friend of more than a quarter century, Lindsey Graham, just was presumptuous enough to suggest how the press corps should do its job. I'm going to give him a little love on that. Find Bobby Menendez, the chairman, the Democratic chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, and ask him how he really feels about this. I think he will tell you, if he's honest, that we should be giving those MiGs and we should be doing everything we can. Ask Jack Reed, the Democratic chairman of the Armed Services Committee, how he really feels about this, and he will tell you that he stands with us. Ask Ben Cardin, the Democratic chairman of the Helsinki Commission, the commission that represents some 50 or more countries that joined together for peace and following the rule of law in Europe. Ask him how he feels about this, and he will say we need to facilitate getting the MiGs. We stand up here on behalf of the vast majority of the American people, and we are asking the president, yes, take a little risk and take this, what could be decisive action on behalf of a free country that wants to defend itself.
This is too good. So do a poll. Ask Republicans, who do you like best, Zelensky or Putin? There's a poll coming out tonight I'm aware of where Putin's approval rating is 0.7%. Now, I don't know who these people are, but there are not a lot of them. I think the average Republican and Democrat in this country would give high marks to Zelensky. Do a poll. I've seen these polls. What Putin has done something we can't do among ourselves. Like 90% of the country is with the Ukrainians and is opposed to Putin. So when you see a member of Congress say things like this, the one thing I want you to know, they're outliers in the largest sense possible on our side. And there's some on the left that are outliers. So let's end with this thought, that America believes that Zelensky and the Ukrainians are the good guys and Putin's the bad guys, and we'd like to be helping the good guys more.
Yeah, we're going to close. We're going to close, but we do have a copy of the letter that has been signed by most of our Republican conference, so we'll go ahead and hand those out to you if you would like a copy. But we all thank you very much for coming today.